Welcome to Facet Networks. My name is Foster. At Facet Networks, we take the complexity of network security and cybersecurity and make it simple for you to protect yourself and your business. This series or this short video, it's a follow-up to the first video we did talking about passwords. Okay, so this is going to look into some of the protections you can employ or use to make sure that you are secure and safe online. And as you can see on your screen, today's message title is Multifactor Authentication. Okay, so really the traditional password, as we mentioned in the last video, talks about just having a strong password, which is great, right? But we are living in a landscape where a password alone is not sufficient to protect you and your assets or protect your device online. We're dealing with sophisticated agents, right? You know, we're dealing with people who have ample resources that can allow them to bypass just a single password as your keys to your kingdom. So we're going to look into different ways and modes and methods that you can use to make sure that you are safe online and your devices are protected. Okay, so we're looking at multi-factor authentication, and let's dive into it. So what is a multi-factor authentication? Right, in layman's terms, multi-factor authentication is simply providing two or more evidence or ways to get into a device, such as your phone, your laptop, your online account, etc. Basically, you are providing another layer of evidence besides your password to get access to something. So the first layer is the password. Okay, is you use a password to authenticate or get access to a device, to a platform like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever the case is. Okay, multi-factor just says, okay, it's great you have a password, but provide an additional information. It's like when you apply for your passport and they say, okay, it's good you've got your picture, your photo, but get somebody else to sign it, right? We need another person or another entity to validate that you are who you say you are. So really all it is you're providing multiple means or ways to get access to something. That's all it's really talking about, right? That's the principle, right? So multi-factor authentication, or MFA or 2FA, combines multiple factors to provide additional security for strong protection, whether it's protection online or protection locally on your local network or your business network. Okay, and we will touch on the different factors that makes MFA what it is. So MFA relies on what we call factors, okay? And these factors, as you can see, there are four main factors, okay? The first one, and these are not in order of preference, it's just they have to be listed, so we put them here. But the first one is really something that you have. And when we mention what you have, we're talking about a security token. I have a picture of those I can show you later on in the slide. A bank card, a key, etc. Something physical that you have at your disposal to be able to use to authenticate or get access after you have entered your password. Okay. The next one is something that once again, knowing something, a password. Typically, you know a password when you set up your online account, or a code or a PIN. Okay, so something that that you can use to authenticate or get access to your account or your devices. The next one is something you are. We're talking biometrics here. Okay, so biometrics meaning your fingerprint, your iris, your face, your voice, your palm. There's so many variables when it comes to biometrics that you can employ or use to authenticate, right? If you know, back in the days when biometrics were used, when we see in the movies, those were really expensive. But today, any next generation iPhone or Android phone, they all have these capabilities built in, right? So you can unlock your device or lock it with your face or your fingerprint. So really, it's no longer an excuse not to use some of these additional security features built into your devices to make sure that you are secure. Okay, so the next one is somewhere you are. Now this is talking primarily, it could be a physical location or specific to your network alone. So an example would be, you know, I'm here in Canada. Okay, I'm here in Canada, and if I enable the somewhere you are in my environment, if I happen to travel to, say, United States, okay, and I'm trying to log into my device, if I don't take or if I don't make the concessions to make sure that that will work, the system is going to stop and say, wait a minute, so Foster is in Canada, okay, so he's entered his username, he's entered his password, he's entered whatever else, maybe a PIN, but now the last thing is we need to check where he is. But why is he coming from United States? Okay, and you know, there's ways you can get around these, but we're just focusing on the principle here, right? So if all of those principles, if all of those factors do not add up, then I get rejected, right? So you know, somewhere you are is typically not used in a typical environment, right? But if you work for a secure organization like, you know, the government or the military or some other high level security places, this might become a factor that has to be considered in order to authenticate. Then, you know, and these are just pictures of, these are just some of the stuff that we typically use. So if you look in the previous slide when I talked about the various stuff, you know, factors, you know, there's a token, as you can see. It could be a hard device, or it could be a soft token, or even what some organizations have done is they've created what they call the Authenticator app, right? There's Microsoft versions, there's Google versions, there's other versions you can download on your mobile device and then tie your accounts to it, as you can see here on the screen, right? So in this particular case, as the example provided by Microsoft, this person has their Microsoft account, they have a Control Store account, they have a Dropbox account, and you can add a whole bunch of different accounts so that anytime you try to log into any of these, after you've entered your password, it'll prompt you, right? It'll say, hey, it'll give you a random generated code for you to enter in order to authenticate, to allow access to that resource. Okay, so these are just some of the elements that you can use to provide additional access or to enable 2FA. How does multi-factor authentication work? So as already mentioned, it combines two or more factors to get it to provide access, right? Typically, you know, a lot of the banks are doing it today. If a bank is not doing it, then I don't know, there might be agent or something is preventing them. But typically, a lot of the banks today employ multi-factor authentication, just as well as Google and Facebook and all these other social media platforms. Even your phones have them, right? But the key is you have to enable it. It doesn't come by default, so you have to go into your bank and then set it up. You have to go into your Google account and set it up, your Facebook, etc., right? Even your phone, you have to set it up. So the idea is that it's there, you just have to enable it. And typically when you enable it, right, when you enable it, this is what happens. What happens is you log into that online platform, that device, right, that is, right? You go on and you enter your username and your password. That's the first factor. That's the one factor authentication. Traditionally speaking, maybe, you know, 20 years ago, this would have been enough, right? 15 years ago, 10 years ago, this would have been enough. You go, you enter your username and password, you logged in, everybody's happy. But today, because we're dealing with state actors and threat actors, right, and persistent, you know, criminals, hackers, that is, right, you cannot just rely on that one factor or that one simple login process, right, where you just put your username and password. You need to go to the next step, which is a second factor, and this is where multi-factor becomes key, right? So the first stage, you enter your username and password, if multi-factor is enabled, then it'll say, hey, okay, you've entered your username and password. I recognize that, but I will send a code or a PIN to either your hardware token, your software token, or to your cell phone, whatever has been enabled, right? And once you receive the code, you enter it, and then only then will it provide access for you. Okay, so if you forget the code or the PIN, or if you lost that device, then becomes a bit of a challenge where you need to engage professionals to help you alleviate. But for the most part, this is, it's not much of an issue, as most of us have our devices on us, and we have multiple devices and ways to get in. So really, it's not an issue with you losing your device, right? But the key is you need to enable multi-factor to allow additional layer of security to protect your stuff online, at home, at your workplace, etc., right? So the process, as you can, is really simple. Enter username, you get a code, you enter the code, you're given access to your resources, right? But as I said earlier, even though a lot of the companies, a lot of the resources and the stuff we use on a day-to-day have them, you need to enable them, and in order to take advantage of this. Now, why is it necessary? Yes, a single password is great. You can use it. You can, for the most part, maybe get away with it. But, as the criminals get more desperate and they get more savvy and more advanced, right? Advanced persistent threats, the really big guys who have the money and resources to tap into resources, they can get their way into your device if you're just using or your network or your online account if it's only using password. And as I pointed out last time in the password series, a lot of people use the basic 123 or WXYZ, whatever the case is, right? So it's necessary because it protects you in the event that your account has been compromised. Okay, let's just say somebody was able to figure out your username and password, because on social media you put in everything there. Some people put everything on social media, and that's one thing you need to be careful of too. But let's just say they've somehow found a way to compromise your username and password. They've got it in their possession. If you have multi-factor authentication enabled, then the second piece, because they don't have it, they cannot easily get into your account. It's going to be really difficult for them to get the second piece, which you should have it in your possession, right? So it's really necessary in the event of a compromise, in the event that you accidentally gave your password to somebody and you forgot about it, right? Having multi-factor authentication in place will protect you, at the very least, frustrate those people who are trying to get access to your account. Okay, so it's really key, and it will protect you. So as I said earlier, it's good to enable it, to have it at your disposal. Okay, and who offers these things? A lot of the companies already mentioned, Google, Microsoft, banks, social media platforms. These are just some of the few networks and organizations that enable them, right? Your personal phone should have it, your tablets and all of those things. So enable them so that you can be safe online without worrying about who has access to my stuff. Okay, so our recommendation at Fasten Networks is whenever that capability, whenever the feature is present, you want to enable it and use it. It will give you peace of mind. Okay, so until next time, stay safe. We will be back talking about different elements and different tips and nuggets to help you stay secure online and even at home. Okay, so until next time, take care. My name is Foster. If you like this series, comment, leave a question, subscribe, and we'll be back again. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.